They showed me an exploratory therapy camp.
I'm out in Phoenix, sucking on my binky on. I bought that fetus, you ain't ready to be on my.
This shit is so gross. Maybe this is just a tasteless joke, and I do mean tasteless. Like, if this is a joke, this person can't walk on the side of the internet anymore. Hello, I'm Elliot Sang. I'm a journalist, I'm a writer, and I have two channels, one in which I stream called Elliot Sang, and one in which I post the VODs called Elliot Sang Again. And today we're going to be talking about trans issues. I am not a trans person, and I want to be very clear that my goal today is to do a bit of conversation and think piece journalism about certain different things that seem unrelated but have a huge correlation. Seemingly disparate things that come together to create what is a really bad situation for trans people around the world, but namely in the United States, also places like India, Canada, the United Kingdom today. In order to do so, I'm going to talk about a content creator. Normally, I avoid talking about situations like this, ones that seem to be related with severe potential psychosis, potential mania, nothing that I would want to diagnose because I can't do that. Nobody can do that from this position. But I want to talk about this situation because it is a rich vein from which we can talk about so many things. There are more layers to this cake than the biggest one you can get at a bakery. I'm not good at metaphors. Before I name who I'm talking about, I want to just let you know that all super chats from this stream will be donated to the Lavender Rights Project, which is a really cool organization, a Black trans feminist organization, legal advocacy that does community organizing, movement lawyering, wraparound supportive housing, and builds community for Black folks, for trans folks, and for gender expansive people. If you want to donate, the link is in the description. I will also have my own donation to go along with the super chat sent in. So there's somebody on TikTok right now that is not doing very well. I don't know exactly how to put it other than that. If you haven't heard about this, you might be shocked to find out who it is, because this person is kind of recognizable if you are very online. So it's a TikTok personality who went by Bella Delgado, who now says he is no longer trans after going to an exploratory therapy camp. Okay, this is a piece written by them, Quispe Lopez at them. We are not sure if this is a crisis, although, you know, there can be some signs of that. And generally, there is a bad situation on the internet where we make lolcows, and we especially make lolcows out of people who are going through genuine psychosis, going through genuine mental health crises, that so much attention online, especially aggressive negative attention or goading or encouragement, can only derail, okay? I'm choosing not to put this person in the thumbnail, and I'm trying to be very careful about how I talk about this situation. But the reason I'm going to talk about this situation is actually 4 reasons, okay? First is that this is a content creator of significant size. This person has gone viral multiple times. And as you can see, if you see one of his older TikToks, you probably recognize him.
Billy Ray Cyrus, I will always find the time of day to drag you because I hate you, bitch. I really do, from the deepest core of my being to the surface of my entity, because how dare you call your own daughter a devil and a skank, like you weren't the one who brought home a 20-year-old man for that girl to date when she was 15 goddamn years old. You were the one who was on set of the Vanity Fair photo shoot that day where they stripped her ass naked, had her covering nothing but her tatas with a little silk sheet, and you allowed them to publish those photos. Once they were released, you sat there and allowed the media to tear her to fucking shreds for it, forced her to issue an apology for it, when you know damn well as a father on set that day it was your responsibility and yours alone to dead that shit right the
So this is one of several viral TikToks by this content creator. They made many famous rants. There was one about SpongeBob and Patrick Star being a monitoring spirit.
I have never in my life seen such a grotesque display of arrogance and unearned audacity as I did when you decided to stab SpongeBob in the back like this.
There was one about Drake This one has a pretty big reaction video.
As I'm sure you're already aware, these bitches are fighting. I'm not sure exactly about what even, however, it doesn't really matter to me either way considering Kendrick Lamar is senpai, so I'm immediately on his side. However, I wanted to chime in for one reason in particular. Drake recently dropped this diss track where he essentially goes at Kendrick Lamar by insinuating that he is a mainstream sellout because he has done songs with Taylor Swift as well as Maroon 5 in the past. And pardon me, Drizzy, but if you're gonna be pointing fingers here, I'm gonna make like Haley Williams and point you to the mirror. Aubrey, you did a song with Justin Bieber in 2012, and not even adult contemporary Justin Bieber with a few more years of experience and street cred after he pissed in the mop bucket and got arrested. You did a song with Justin Bieber when he was still the same age as the girls you date.
And there was also a really big one about Nicki Minaj. I could go on and on, but I don't want to derail the conversation too much. A lot of us laughed a lot at these rants. A lot of us found them to be verbose, very witty, and very well organized. So this person has over 1 million followers on TikTok and is quite recognizable. And so that's one reason that I'm going to talk about this. But there's 3 more reasons. The second reason is that what this content creator is doing right now ultimately does have harmful implications toward multiple marginalized communities, and we can't just brush over that.
I just uploaded a music video for my song Peter Griffin Pussy. So if you would like to watch that, it's available now. As somebody's pointing out, it was made with AI. So if you're not into AI, you're probably not going to want to watch it. But I really enjoy it, and I enjoyed making it.
One of the things that he is doing right now is making music with very explicit lyrics.
Gotta give me a cooterie, yeah, to make me a dude. Because that coochie be more in through than Bonnie Blue. Kids from different baby daddies out of...
We'll get into it. It's important, I think, that we're able to have a conversation that doesn't just center one person as doing all the harm, while not also brushing over the fact that they are doing certain harm, even if they are in a difficult mental state, even if they are going through a crisis. Why? Because if we ignore those things, then we allow certain things to go unchecked that does harm those communities, whether it's, women and misogyny that he is perpetuating in a lot of his lyrics as he's, having this masculine era, or whether it's transphobia and the fact that he is, as we'll see, talking about his exploratory therapy, or having rap lines about how God didn't give him a cooter, he had to make him a dude implications, or just straight up anti-blackness. The fact that, men use hip hop as this way to express their masculinity because of how hyper masculinized black people are. There's just a lot here, and all of it sucks. And we can talk about that without also demonizing a single person who may be going through a crisis. Related to that, having empathy for a likely unwell person and having empathy for those harmed by them is not mutually exclusive. And we do need to discuss this in order to break that binary, because a lot of y'all do not do this very well. A lot of you guys go online, okay, and you see a person going through a crisis, and you see that they will do some problematic things while going through that crisis, perhaps a psychosis. And rather than talk about and address the harm being done, as if continuing to treat these issues this way is actually going to do better for these communities. Rather, my approach today is that we're going to think about why a person gets put in this position, why they might be, and again, might be in this state of crisis, and then why that state of crisis can manifest as these things that ultimately have negative effects on different marginalized communities, on black people, on women, on trans people. The last point I'll make is that by discussing this, we can foreground the many ways that trans genocide works. And yeah, I'm using the phrase trans genocide. It's not really something we can debate anymore. I remember a little over a year ago making a video and talking about trans genocide and having people kind of make fun of that, kind of say it's over the top language. And frankly, all those people can go fuck themselves. We are seeing now the Lemkin Institute in particular increasingly warn that a trans genocide is either approaching or is potentially happening right now, by the elimination of institutions, medical support, communities, and through psychological warfare. And in order to really tackle these things, we have to stop thinking like liberals. Whether or not we consider ourselves liberals, sometimes we think like liberals. And by that, I mean that we think everything comes down to a person's individual morality. It's this person online who is going through this psychic break. They're evil. They're the donkey of the day. Now that I've made fun of them, I have done a justice. That's not how this works. Moreover, we sometimes think that standing up for trans people and standing up for queer people or standing up for any marginalized group is a matter of protecting them, as if they are these docile agents that simply need somebody with more power and privilege to step forward with a shield. A lot of the times, folks don't even step forward. They will just talk about protecting the dolls. They will talk about protecting queer people, but they don't actually do it in material ways. But moreover, they use this rhetoric in a way that takes away agency from these communities. It's simply not enough to say, trans people don't bother anybody. Trans people are not hurting anybody. Why are you picking on trans people? As if they're like the little crying kid in the corner. Trans people exist. Their existence is a type of resistance towards an oppressive system. It is political. We have seen over the past few decades how this idea of, gender isn't political, sexuality isn't political, has really done nothing to help these marginalized groups. It's only allowed for some of them to integrate into the system more. So here's a clip of him that has gone the most viral.
Hello there. Hello there. A lot of people have been asking me to address the elephant in the room. Obviously, my display name is no longer Bela Delgado. It now says Topper, which is inspired by the name Christopher. I was born a male named Christopher Delgado. And for the past several years of my life, starting at roughly the age of 18, I have publicly identified as a transgender woman. And that has changed. After years of going on and off of medication and hormones and whatnot, and trying to see why I felt like my head was in such a dark place, I decided that I was going to take some advice from my church. I am a devout Christian. I have been since I was a child, and my transgender identity was always kind of awkwardly balanced with that, obviously, but they showed me an exploratory therapy camp that I've been to a few different times. I went and then I left, and then I went again, and then I went back, and then eventually I ended up finishing. And I've discovered that the answer to my problems is not a gender transition. I'm very much a man, and I'm now realizing I always have been one. Now, let me be clear, this is not some kind of sudden religious psychosis or anything like that. It is just the logical endpoint of an internal war that I have been battling for the past many years that the internet has kind of blinded me from.
This is obviously fucking depressing. And we're going to talk about what exploratory therapy is, but I think you probably have a sense of what it is. But I want to interject with a video of Christopher talking about previously his gender identity and why he was identifying as a trans woman and his perspective on it at the time. I'm also, as you can see, respecting his current choice of pronouns.
I am a trans woman. This is not the first time I've addressed this on TikTok. I'm sure it's a thing. Now, I'm fully aware of what I look like and the fact that I am perceived as a male. That's why I don't even really try to present femme, because I just am not reaching for things that ain't there yet. I have not had much in the way of surgery, mainly because I can't really afford it as of now. I still have to get my fucking teeth fixed, like bitch priorities. And listen, if you care enough about me to refer to me as a she and validate the way I feel inside, that's wonderful, and I beyond fucking appreciate it. I really do. However, I will say, if you see somebody comment on a completely unrelated video and haphazardly say he because that's what I look like, please do not correct them. You do not have to start an argument in the comments. It makes me far more uncomfortable to watch people in the comment section argue over my gender dysphoria than it does to just like see a comment referring to me as a he. Like, it's much easier.
So what I wanted to show this clip before we get back to the new one, it is clearly related to aesthetics. It is clearly related to how Christopher was presenting, and it was clearly related to the fact that he could not afford the care that he was looking for. He stated explicitly that he wanted to get procedures done, that he wanted to present differently, but he didn't feel like he had the resources, and he didn't feel like he was comfortable enough to go in that direction. So he landed in a place where he was like, I'm chill with people calling me whatever pronouns. I present the way that I present, but it would, be cool if you guys referred to me as she. So now I'm going to go back to the original video, in which you'll note that he now frames this as this internal struggle that He has finally won by realizing that he never had to transition in the first place, calling it the logical endpoint of that internal struggle. I want you guys to think about some of the things that he talks about in the last minute or so of this TikTok and what the hell he's actually talking about.
War that I have been battling for the past many years that the internet has kind of blinded me from. At some point, it became my job, and that it was for a couple of years, and I felt like I got to a point where I was performing a very frozen in time version of me that hadn't really existed in several years, and at this point, I just want to go back to being Christopher. And I'm not saying that this is the case for everybody or that everybody needs to be like me. This is just my personal story. I have finally come to peace with my masculine spirit.
We're getting some rhetoric here now that sets off even more alarm bells. Because you'll hear this type of rhetoric from Christian conservatives all the time. Oh, I don't have any problem with gay people. I don't have any problem with trans people. I'm not telling people how to live their life. And then if you pay attention long enough, you can see that they actually don't think that that shit is okay, but they're not trying to be confrontational about it. They're trying to live by the principles that they believe in, which include that a person can be born only as the sex that they've been assigned. All the phraseology. Bear in mind that this guy had made a song, which we have seen has been published now with a music video made from AI, in which he says, I wasn't born with a cooter, God had to make me a man. So whether or not, and I have heard since that last night he was on his on his TikTok story saying, you know, he's doing this actually to ruin Pride Month or something like that. That's a very flimsy sort of quote that clearly doesn't actually make sense. Moreover, he's also getting into this idea that he's actually been faking everything the whole time. He really wants us to know that. He really wants us to see he was lying for the internet. And then he uses the phrase masculine spirit. So it's clear that there is some type of attempt to appeal to a naturalism of gender, bioessentialism. And more than that, a bioessentialism based in the Bible, a bioessentialism that is Christian.
I have been able to accept my manhood. And part of what I have discovered is that my masculine spirit should not be working on the internet. I should be making my money doing physical labor, which is why I have decided to take on the job that I have now. I don't make money from the internet anymore, and it's actually liberating because I am now able to express myself creatively in the ways that I actually am interested in doing, whether or not people understand that.
You are still posting a lot to the internet, and with lengths of videos that will be monetized on TikTok. So I'm not quite sure how much he's committed to this idea, but it's almost comedic, right? It really does give some credence, and we'll never know, or perhaps we'll know later. But it gives credence to this idea that maybe this is just a fucking joke. Maybe this is just a tasteless joke. And I do mean tasteless. Like, if this is a joke, this person can't walk on the side of the internet anymore. This would take serious redemption, serious work, serious donation, serious effort. I think there's a lot of evidence that suggests that this is genuine, whether or not it is from a sort of psychic break. That is not something we necessarily know. But if this is a joke, I don't even know what to say. Now, if we get into the rest of the content, we got the rapping going on. We've got
give me a
the Bonnie Blue freestyle.
Be more in through than Bonnie Blue. Kiss from different base.
See, you're continuously promoting this song. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. Is this not transphobic? Now it's starting to get like, is this comedic? Not only does Topher want us to believe that he was completely lying on the internet, which also is incongruous with the idea that he was battling something internally, because if you're battling it with internally, that's not necessarily that you were grifting or lying. But he keeps using this rhetoric that he was grifting and lying, and in particular, he's also taking back certain talking points that he made, including about Nicki Minaj.
And the truth of the matter is that it shouldn't matter, because it was never my place to speak on her personal life or her family or her morality to begin with. It was never my place to condemn her or say she's going to hell. real, even if it was a joke. It wasn't a funny one. It was really messed up. Like, you can all very clearly see a woman who has been through a lot, who's going through a lot, probably a lot of stuff we'll never even be able to comprehend.
We've got fandoms that are loving it in the chat, in the comments as well. So there's a lot of people that are taking this in good stride, so to speak. A lot of people who are like, yeah, we fucks with Top Her.
Another key thing to note here, her husband is not a pedophile. You guys literally just made that up and like ran with it, but there's no indication of that whatsoever. He was convicted of a very heinous crime when he was 15 years old. It was to a person a year older than him, but he's not by any accounts a pedophile. Like,
how he has gone from his previous viral takedown of Nicki Minaj to beefing with people online and defending Nicki Minaj. So there's also one about Drake.
Bro, I'm fucking dead because I used a Drake song for one of my TikToks last night, and now you have a bunch of people in the comments going, well, this obviously is all a lie. This is some kind of twisted joke or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you want to know what the lie was? Me saying that I didn't like Drake. That was the lie, because it was my job to do social media at the time, so I would lie about shit a lot and just say things that I didn't actually believe because I wanted money, and I knew I would make a whole lot more money saying I didn't like Drake as opposed to saying I'm indifferent towards Kendrick Lamar.
So this is where I feel like either it's a bit or there's something deep psychically going on here, because we have seen cases where some people detransition and are perfectly respectful about it. It's a slow process. It is a mediated process. It is one that they think about a lot and they talk about from a very honest place. What's being presented to us here is this very aggressive rebrand that almost seems like it's a fight, a violent fight against one person's former self. It's a person saying, I was completely full of shit about everything, which again is a contradiction with the idea that you were just exploring something. You know, if this exploratory camp has led you to believe that the person that you were before was a piece of shit who lied about everything and was completely dishonest, that doesn't sound like much of an exploration. That sounds like you've been indoctrinated. That sounds like you've been convinced of something. That sounds like self-hate. Now, is it possible that after all of this, you do in fact feel more comfortable identifying as a man? Sure, I'll respect your pronouns. That's necessary. I think it's necessary to respect people's pronouns, and it's necessary to respect how people choose to identify. But this disrespect is incongruous with the idea that you also respect gay people, that you also respect trans people. And it's incongruous with the idea that you were just exploring things inside yourself and just happened to land here. Okay? What it sounds like is violence. What it sounds like is hate. And whether consciously or subconsciously, I think subconsciously, you are weaponizing that hate by pretending to point it against yourself. But at some point or another, that hate ends up affecting everybody else. That's why self-hate is fundamentally reactionary. It's fundamentally a bad thing to hate yourself, because what do you hate yourself for? Okay? If you were a fat person and you hated yourself because you were fat, what does that mean about how you think about fat people? If you were, you know, a tall person, you hated yourself because you were tall, hated yourself because you were short. And that cognitive dissonance in your head where it's like, well, but no, I don't actually hate people who are like that. I just hate myself for being that, or I just hate the way it makes me feel. That's called you didn't explore anything. That's called you shut everything down inside yourself. And this speaks to exactly what exploratory therapy, aka conversion therapy, actually is. So we have gone through this period now for 20 years in which we've had this liberal backlash against conversion, quote unquote therapy, a necessary backlash to protect gay and trans rights, particularly gay rights, as you know, the liberal paradigm has struggled to properly do any type of integration of trans people. Conversion therapy has been fought against for some time, and yet it comes back. From the Trevor Project, our latest report, it sheds light on the alarming and extensive presence of practitioners of so-called conversion therapy across the US. Now, as Evelyn notes, conversion therapy is full rebranding, right? Part of the project shows that researchers perform systematic online searches of terms designed to surface individuals who advocate for and or directly engage in conversion therapy, like reparative therapy, ex-gay, and unwanted same-sex attraction, right? So of course they're going to use different euphemisms, right? I've seen churches brand to like, oh, you're inclusive, gender critical, or we want you to be your real self. They weaponize therapeutic language. And this just again showcases like the ways in which liberalism makes these therapeutic and psychological tools very easy to manipulate against the same people it's supposed to help. Because yes, it's important to do trauma work, it's important to do self-care, it's important to dig into your past and where you were hurt and family ties and all of that. But you see a lot of people out here that are like, oh yeah, this person, they're anti-Zionist because they must have had a traumatic experience with a Jewish person in their childhood, and if we could just reconcile that hurt, you know. Or yeah, this person, you know, they're a socialist because they probably have an experience with deprivation, or they're probably doing some sort of performative thing. You know, this is what's being said about Gen Zers all the time now. They're doing some sort of performative thing to signal to other people that they're smart or cool. And you see a lot of people that are willing to buy into this as well, because for one, that appears to go with the same narrative about our self-exploration and about healing that we've been comfortable with. And for two, a lot of people are very willing to hate as long as they can code it as hating themselves, right? So this is also just how reactionary shit works. This is how oppression works. It's a technology, right? We'll get into specific technology soon, but it's a technology. It continuously adapts and evolves because they're never going to give up on trying to kill us all. They're never going to give up on trying to enslave us all. That's just how elite people move, okay? I don't know what to tell you. They will destroy every amount of collective work that we have, every resources that we have, using any technique that they can find. As an example of how this power as an example of how this evolves, here is a recent case from May 1st. As reported by the Billy Graham website, Decision, the evangelical voice for today. Christian counselor wins in court. Victory for free speech and religious liberty. I want y'all to really take note of what's going on here. In an 8-1 ruling on March 31st, the U.S. Supreme Court delivered a definitive victory for Kaylee Childs, a licensed Christian counselor in Colorado Springs, who sought to offer compassionate talk therapy to minors grappling with gender dysphoria. Oh, really? Compassionate talk therapy. That sounds nice. But pro-family advocates say the decision in Child's... I'm trying to say Chile's. Chile's. But pro-family advocates say the decision in Childs versus Salazar goes beyond a personal triumph for Childs. They are declaring it a win for free speech, religious liberty, parental rights, and the ability of families to pursue mental health support that aligns with their faith. Oh, it aligns with their faith. I wonder what that means. The case revolves around the question of whether a law that censors certain conversations between counselors and their clients regulates conduct or violates the free speech clause. Childs, who holds a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, I would hope so because she's practicing mental health counseling, but you know, we got to establish that this person has real chops, you know, real education. By the way, no doctorate. No doctorate. Shout out to Cheyenne Bryant. Says she keeps her sessions free from predetermined agendas. Oh, but we're also aligning with specific faiths, but we're free of a predetermined agenda. Okay. Allowing young people to state their own goals. For some, that goal is to reduce unwanted sexual attractions or to align behaviors with their biological sex and biblical truth. Oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, it's like so paper thin, right? So the idea that you let a person into therapy, right? And you have them just tell you what they want to do, and then you just help them do that. That's not how therapy is supposed to work, or how it should work in a really equitable and empowering system. Because if you come into my office and I'm your therapist and you're like, look, my goal is to go back to self-harming because I was much more productive when I self-harmed, and because I'm struggling with like certain social expectations that say I shouldn't self-harm, I chose to stop doing it. And I'm just like, okay, let's help get you back on that road. You know, I don't want to come in with any predetermined agendas about how that's bad or anything. Like, that's obviously not the fucking case. There are certain agendas, including the patient's agenda, that should not just be gone along with by the therapist. Okay? And I'm sorry, this is a very triggering conversation, so I thank everybody for their patience in this. I haven't really been doing a good job with trigger warnings. But this idea that, oh yeah, we'll just have it align with your faith, but it's also not going to have a predetermined agenda, is like the biggest contradiction you've ever seen in your life. Regardless, it makes use of these terms like mental health care. Mental health is so important, right? That start out from this ostensibly center-left place, this apparently liberal place, and get manipulated into just new ways to reproduce the same bullshit over and over and over and over and over again. This approach, however, collided with Colorado's 2019 Mental Health Practice Act, which bars licensed counselors from engaging in what the law labels conversion therapy with minors. The statute defines the ban in broad terms: any effort to change an individual's sexual orientation, including attempts to alter behaviors or gender expressions, or to eliminate or reduce sexual or romantic attraction or towards individuals of the same sex. Penalties are steep. Fines up to $5,000 and potential loss of one's professional license. Yeah, because it's a horrible thing to do. You know, they're trying to create safeguards so that people don't go around trying to change other people's sexualities, which is supposed to be what you guys are into, right? Like you guys are supposed to be into like this idea that, oh, people are trying to change, liberal elites are trying to change my kid's gender. But suddenly, a law that is explicitly designed to ban that, you know, we got to emphasize how dangerous or difficult it is. Its exceptions revealed a clear bias. The statute explicitly permits acceptance, support, and understanding for an individual's identity, exploration, and development. This thing is biased towards acceptance. What the fuck are you practicing therapy for? If acceptance, support, and understanding for an individual's identity, exploration, and development is something that's supposed to be contradictory and biased against your practice, as well as assistance for those undergoing gender transition. Assistance, bro. They're not even saying you gotta fucking inject them with anything. In practice, counselors could affirm like same-sex attraction and gender transitioning, but not an opposite outcome, even when clients sought help aligning with their own values or biological reality. So these Christians, man, they always do this. These establishment, church-based evangelical Christians, they love to pretend and pretend and pretend they're just being so honest and above board and being persecuted when they're not. And it's very obvious that they love to eventually, after some period of getting their ass beat in the public sphere, start adapting by manipulating certain language. And so then you have a person like Topher talking about how helpful that exploratory therapy was for him. And meanwhile, right, it's obviously conversion therapy. It's obviously indoctrination, right? We have some writing here from Free Thought Now. Conversion therapy by any other name, the ugly Christian truth behind gender exploratory therapy, which makes some really good points here, right? Gender exploratory therapy is probably better described as anything but trans therapy and eerily conversion therapy. In 2023, Nebraska passed a restriction on gender-affirming care for minors that required patients presenting with gender dysphoria to go through 5 months of therapy that does not merely affirm their identities, i.e. gender exploratory therapy. While some hailed this as a moderate compromise on the gender-affirming care issue because it still allowed youth to access best practice medical care after that 5-month period, many experts on trans issues, including myself, noted that this is still a conversion therapy mandate. Forcing trans youth through months of therapy focused on convincing them that their feelings must be rooted in some other issue doesn't actually stop them from being trans. It instead forces them to deny an integral part of themselves to the detriment of their own physical and mental health. They have many ways of getting you, but they always will manipulate these liberal norms. Moderate compromises with flowery language that seems to empower the individual. And there's never thought processes about social forces. There's never thought processes about structural issues. This is part and parcel of, and somebody was curious about this before, part and parcel of what is a red flag, what is an ongoing anti-trans genocide in the USA. So the Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention and Human Security, a very well-known organization that is constantly telling people what genocide is, has been putting out these red flag alerts about what they will tell you is an anti-trans genocide. This is their third one, right? How do you justify that, right? Because, you know, somebody was asking, well, a lot of women get killed in femicides every year. Is there a genocide against women? A lot of, you know, black people get killed in America every year for racist hate crimes. Is there a genocide against black people? You could argue that. But moreover, there is a specific attempt at an institutional level with huge pushes at the social level to eradicate transness. That goes beyond just direct one-to-one violence. It goes beyond a weapon like a gun or a knife, and goes towards eradicating ways of life. Every single genocide involves the eradication of not just people, but of ways of life. In fact, this is one of the key things that differentiates genocide from mass murder. Though there's a lot of crossover there, and we are seeing an increase in deaths of trans people, genocide is an exterminationist project. They're trying to exterminate types of people, ways of life. So in Palestine, it's not just about killing Palestinians. It's about destroying mosques. It's about outlawing practices. It's about resource extraction, right? It's about legal destruction of ways of life. It's about the destruction of legal protections. It's at every level in which you could get rid of a person, in which you could get rid of a type of person. Same thing with the indigenous genocide, same thing with the many indigenous genocides in the Americas, like the one the United States was founded on, or the one that many Latin American countries were founded on, like the one that Canada was founded on. I could go on and on. It's first and foremost not just an attempt to kill everybody, but to fundamentally transform people from having specific agency and specific practices and a specific way of life to being agents of your cause. Cultural and paper genocide, right? That's how G has put it. G is very smart in the chat. Shout out to them. So what do we got in the United States? Over the 8 months since the second RFA, which is the red flag alert, the second RFA's publication, the Republican Party's anti-trans agenda has radicalized and continued to intensify. 2025 was the 6th consecutive record-breaking year for the number of anti-trans bills considered across the country. There was a 45% increase in bills between 2024 and 2025. Between 2021 and 2025, the number of bills in consideration has increased by 668%. The administration has moved transgender people as a threat to the family and to the nation's military prowess, which these are very core capitalist values, and why that's necessary for capitalism, why patriarchy is necessary for capitalism. How are you going to reproduce good soldiers and good workers if you have the audacity to question the gender spectrum, to think about your own gender identity, and to think about yourself not just in the confines of one type of structure? To claiming that transgender people constitute a cosmic threat to the spiritual health of the nation and the greatest direct threat to U.S. national security in the world. This, mind you, is the exact rhetoric that, for instance, the Nazis had towards the Jews of Germany and the Jews of Europe, or that Israelis have towards Islam and Palestinians. And where you can see that there are certain women that are championing some type of conservative feminism as part of the Trump administration, from the Erica Kirks to the Usha Vances to the Nicki Minaj's to the insert your right wing, Ally Beth Stuckey, where you have certain folks that are trying very miserably to promote some type of pro-black, anti-black rhetoric in the sense of like, oh, it's actually best for black people if we, assimilate into Western values and like become far right conservatives. There's not even an attempt at being like how you can be trans for Trump. They don't even make that attempt, and you have to ask why, because it's not like they're above doing that kind of thing. They've had people like Blair White in the past. They'll probably try that again once this fascist era collapses into the next one. They'll probably try it again in the future. But in this moment, they're very clear. Eradicate transness. Eradicate gender fluidity. Eradicate it. That is genocide. That is genocidal. Okay. By the way, in Nazi Germany, as Sorry Who points out in the chat, the LGBT community were also genocided, so to speak. They also were part of the Holocaust. So to make it 100% clear, given these ideological developments, especially coupled with the increasingly hostile and draconian legislation against trans identities, the Lemkin Institute believes that the United States is squarely within the early to middle stages of a genocidal process against trans people, the goal of which is to completely erase transgender people not only from public life, but also from existence in the US and globally. And we do mean globally because, the top fascist countries are coalescing with this type of rhetoric. We're seeing similar types of moves happening in India, for instance. We have a article. We talked about this a little bit before, but yeah, this was in March. There was presidential approval of a regressive transgender bill. Amnesty International declared it a major step backward for human rights. Another example of this, HRT just effectively got banned in Oklahoma. And this Twitter account, April's Books, points out this is genocide. Trans people are facing genocide. Prohibits Medicaid coverage of surgical procedures and pharmaceuticals for the purpose of gender transition. These are all part of what makes genocide. I don't know if that person who was kind of doubting this terminology earlier on is still here, but hopefully that answers some of those questions. Now we're going to get into some very upsetting territory now. We're going to talk about certain people who have lost their lives. There have been 13 trans people who have been murdered since April 1st, 2026. This was as of May 29th. Devontae Curtis, April 5th, blunt force trauma. Daniela Annalie Escobedo, 34 years old, murdered. Danielle Spillman, 74 years old, deliberately run over. Eliana Belcher, April 17th, 31 years old, stabbed. Luca Redbeard Knapp, 39 years old, shot attempting to defend a neighbor. Linessa Rodriguez, 35 years old, shot in her business. And this is in Canada. Trans woman beaten to death in Toronto, and police are having trouble identifying them. The police are not pushing the story very much. You're not hearing about it being declared across news media because liberalism and fascism are in cahoots. They're just presenting different fucking sides of the same fucking coin. This is genocide. This is fascism. And this is how it works. These are the cases where you would say it's undeniable, and even still people will try to deny it. Well, those are isolated incidents, as if there's not this massive social undercurrent that is specifically telling people to go fucking eradicate a specific group of people. But it also works in the same ways that it works through Top Her. Fascism is being summoned through that content creator's body, whether he sees it that way or not, because it's an explicitly transphobic situation. It's explicitly connected with transgenocide. It is explicitly a story of exploratory therapy and a person being almost certainly completely traumatized by the experience. It is also a case of fascism working as fascism does, that person being presented other ways of harming other people in order to try to assimilate out of that exploratory therapy. So we do anti-blackness. We do this caricaturish AI trap music where we do misogyny over and over again. Anti-blackness and misogyny show up as these weapons, as these tools that you can use, as these medications that you can take so that you can be more and more fascist without feeling so fucking condemned by it. Because you got somebody else to beat up on, somebody else to make feel inferior, somebody else whose lives you can worsen. But there's one thread here that I want to finish with that I think people are underselling the importance of. Like, you guys don't realize how much AI has to do with this. We're currently trying to figure out as a society what we're against when it comes to this AI shit versus what we can live with. And I have friends and colleagues that have a variety of opinions on this matter. But to me, I don't think there's any other position than anti-AI for somebody who actually wants radical change. AI is explicitly a fascist project. And this is exactly the point. This shows you exactly why.
Gotta give me a cootery, yeah, to make me a dude. Because that coochie be more ran through than Bonnie Blue.
We've got everything going on here. This is Top Her's music video that I showed you a little earlier for the Bonnie Blue freestyle.
It's from different baby daddies. It's
atrocious. I'm so sorry I'm subjecting you to this.
And I was stuck like glue. I'm out in Phoenix sucking nipples and my binky on. I bought that fetus, bitch, you ain't ready to be a mom.
This shit is so
deeper, make her
gross.
sing like Celine Dion. Descended, put that bitch to sleep. I'm magnesium.
It's like the worst looking thing I've ever seen in my life. It's appalling to look at. Got caricatures of people's likenesses, Bonnie Blue namely, who is, I hear, a sex pest. Well, I don't know I have no research on that. It's embarrassing, it's cringeworthy, it's anti-black. I'm just gonna say it's anti-black, right? But above all else, the AI of it is not coincidental. Because if you are in this traumatized mental state, I'm not saying this is Top Her's case, again, I'm being careful and not diagnosing. Let's say you are a trans young person, and let's say you've been pushed into exploratory therapy, you've been convinced that your gender identity is actually just male, and now you have to fit into the patriarchy and you have to embrace your masculine spirit, and you're in a deeply fragile state trying to explore that. What AI does is it offers a free or low cost psychic sedative. It offers what I think is the most important thing that AI offers to people, which is sycophancy. Sycophancy is not help. Sycophancy is a yes man. Sycophancy is enabling, right? And what AI is branded as is this tool that you can use where you will be affirmed in anything. You will be affirmed in any desire, right? If you look close enough and if you push down all of your sense of reality, the AI has actually given you the world you want to live in. This is fundamental fascist technology. It is psychological warfare. It is something that can help being an operative word, help distort people psychically so badly that these campaigns of eradication can become that much easier. It's soul murder, sad boy hours. It's a good term. And to speak to that, obviously AI is used for many different reasons, but it is especially a useful tool for folks who have explicitly fascist desires and purposes, because it can help them create that psychic onslaught. It's like putting on a VR headset and living there. You're just ever more engaged into that world in which actually you're correct, actually you're rational, actually trans people are evil, actually women are weak and should be subjected to you, actually you're super hot, actually. This is what I'm referring to. This is the more obvious type of fascism. UFC star Sean Strickland posted an AI clip on Instagram of himself in the ring with Dylan Mulvaney, the transgender influencer. I'm not going to play the AI generated video for you because it's sickening and I don't even want to bother engaging with it that much. But as you can see, it's pushing an agenda, right? Obviously it is. I've yet to see one rainbow flag. We're back. And then said that Trump has made June far less gay. Say what you want about Trump, but June has got far less gay. So it's gross. It's one of like 50 different disgusting things that Sean Strickland has done. But I'm not even that interested in like doing the thing that often we do online where we talk about how gross a person is, because it is what it is, right? That's exactly the kind of response that he would want, and it goes without saying anyway. What this tells us is, again, transphobia is a cause that AI is very useful for, because again, you can psychically convince yourself and psychically manipulate others through quote unquote photorealistic, but not actually photorealistic if you look closely 99% of the time, imagery that conveys not only the lived reality that the reality that you live in, the distorted reality that shares nothing with the people around you that you live in, but it also makes you look to this certain crowd of people and it gives you the opportunity to feel as though you are on the cutting edge of technology, or the wave of the future, anti-trans propaganda. So as Red Rooster points out, if you look at how the tech billionaires talk about Gen AI, they are seeing it as another form of colonial power. When we talk about AI, we're still not on the same page. Left-wing, either pro-AI or AI neutral takes about how we can potentially use AI for good, takes about how the problem is how the capitalists are using the AI, or how the industries are forming around the AI, but not necessarily AI technology itself. But to me, the technology is fascism. More specifically, AI is a political project. What do I mean by that? If I were to tell you I'm starting an industry, the industry is called teleportation. And the teleportation industry is researching ways in which we can change the world and create new horizons of human travel by finally achieving the science of teleportation, something that we've all seen in cartoons and movies. So we're all aware of how high tech and sophisticated such a thing could be. And the technology is not one thing, but it's a bunch of different things that I can label teleportation. Mainly, if I make a super powerful jet that goes super duper fast, I call that a key development of teleportation technology, because this will get you from New York to California in 30 minutes. Imagine what we could do if we invest more into it. We will narrow down the amount of time more and more until we have true general teleportation. The only thing that you need to do is invest heavily in teleportation. Everybody pay $1 million in taxes in teleportation. Let us build massive data centers that pollute your environment in your neighborhood so that we can fuel more teleportation technology. And people say, well, why would I let you not allow me or my entire neighborhood to have clean drinking water or clean air to breathe? Offer something that isn't actually addressing our needs, right? Like, I have so many fucking needs, and you're trying to create a teleportation jet. And it's pretty obvious that all that you're doing is just making jets faster. And then the answer is potential. Well, maybe there will be inconveniences in the present time, but if we have teleportation, imagine the revolution that could happen in medical fields. Imagine the revolution that could happen in terms of people would be able to travel from the United States immediately to Sudan and give them medical and food aid immediately. The horizon for the technology. And are you against technology? Technological development, man. Like, we need it. At the end of the day, it's going to happen one way or the other. Teleportation is here, man. They just made a 28-minute jet. Anthropic says they have a 27-minute and 30-second jet. That's that it rips little portals in the and it goes so fast that it rips little portals in the space-time continuum without anybody getting hurt inside. They said it, right? And now all the big companies, Microsoft and Apple and they're all investing in teleportation. It's here. And as socialists, like, are we going to be anti-technology? As leftists, are we going to be anti-technology? We seized the means of teleportation. Imagine if we had teleportation but owned by the people. All of this around what is not new technology and what is really just a massive investment scheme that fundamentally shifts resources away from areas of need for different communities and different societies towards something that's getting a bunch of rich people richer. That is AI. Language models are not new. Even large language models have existed for some time. You know, all a large language model is a language model that's large. Computer generated imagery, automated computer generated imagery is not new. They're calling it AI so that they can do something to you. What is it that they're trying to do to you? They're trying to disempower you. They're trying to take resources away from your communities. They're trying to make a gigantic get-rich-quick scheme, and they're trying to direct us further and further away from the idea that our collectives and our communities could solve our own problems, and further towards an idea that if we just invest hard enough in the future and in technology, that all of us can individually just solve our problems with individual brilliance through using amazing new technology. It's a fucking lie. I've had friends online that have said more or less positive things about certain AI technologies. That's not AI. I mean, it is AI, but like, here, this is what I'm trying to say. I, despite this, feel increasingly every day like there is no positive future for the AI. There is none. It's a lie. We are finding utility because humans can find utility from anything. And utility is incredibly subjective. Yes, you know, AI is a very useful thing for police departments to arrest random black people. But AI can't have utility because technology doesn't have utility. Humans use things for different purposes. There is no such thing as like, this thing has utility. People will be like, oh, you want to get rid of cars too? We've designed our entire world for car usage. So obviously getting rid of cars tomorrow would make things harder. But also, we didn't have to design our entire world for car usage. We did that for the main purpose. I'm not talking about all the different purposes that people use different things for, but for the main purpose of a group of elite people making massive amounts of profit and then controlling different forms of transportation in ways that they can continuously profiteer from and in ways that they can marginalize different communities. Technology is not neutral. Technology is an idea. Technology is something that evolves over time to adapt to circumstances. Technology is something that creates potentialities. And so technology advancing is not a neutral category. It doesn't just advance because technology is advanced. You've been playing too much RTS. You've been playing too much Civ. People come up with projects. Those projects meet needs and desires that they have. States and elites come up with projects like AI in order to do certain things that they want to do. And if you as an individual living under that oppressive system also can use some of that technology at the commodity level for something that you find helpful for you, that is not the same conversation as AI being good, or the same conversation as the need for us to invest in AI, or the same conversation as it's a good idea for us to collectively own AI. So there's my big AI rant, and I'll probably give it again a few more times, right? But the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because AI, if you think about it, it doesn't actually save money. It doesn't actually do the things it says it's going to do. It's creating a gigantic bubble in the economy. It's massively unpopular, and the data centers that are being constructed are extremely destructive for our environment and are also massively unpopular at the political level across the political spectrum. So what the fuck is AI for? What does it do? I'll tell you. What AI does is fascism. AI is a fascist political project. Point blank, period. So when you say, oh, we can use AI for good, that's like you saying we could use the Trump election in 2024 for good. Like, just know that most of the ways in which you're saying we can use it for good are just things that end up supporting the same companies that do the AI and supporting the same institutions that want this fascism. So I don't really see how you're justifying it. But that's a separate conversation. In this case, transgenocide is a fundamental pillar of fascism, as it has existed historically and as it exists now. Fascism is, we're going to kill as many people as we can so that we can what? So that we can discipline labor, so that we can stop people from working together, so that we can stop people from changing the system. That's like as narrow as I could put it for you. Clara Mattei has wrote a couple of important books, including The Capital Order, about how fascism happens and how liberalism facilitates fascism. Historically, every single time it's, oh, there's capitalist crisis. What are we going to do? Fascism. Why? Because people are starting to get together. They're starting to say that they're socialists and communists. They're starting to unionize. They're starting to do XYZ. We need to fucking kill them. We need to kill as many of them as possible and scare the rest of them so that they never do that shit again. That's what fascism is, right? That's what fascism is. So how does AI help that? First, it gives us sycophancy in place of actual autonomy. Instead of searching for answers to your problems by reaching to community for insight and resources, you are given a chatbot, which you are told will answer everything for you. And given what we know about AI limitations and hallucinations, it fundamentally can't do that, but it says it'll do that. If you were to use a large language model and design a chatbot from a large language model, but create strong restrictions and regulations so that it's only designed to organize your weekly schedule and you can't ask it for psychological advice or spiritual opinions, you would then have something called a digital organizer with automation technology, but they don't want to sell you that. Why? Because the point is the sycophancy. The point is that you can think, oh, I can make this thing tell me anything I want it to tell me, and so anything that I want to be told, I'll tell it to tell me. Okay? It's not about computer-generated imagery or language model usage. It's about what the product is packaged to convince you of. Namely, that it is giving you all this individual power and ability that you didn't before, that you can now have forever, and thus that you need not worry about solidarity. I don't got to worry about having a community that tells me where to go. I'll ask the bot. In the realm of transgenocide, a trans person theoretically can be convinced that no, they don't need to think about the politics of conversion therapy. They don't need to think about what gender really is and about what unique relationship they have with it. They can, in fact, just be the thing the system wants them to be. In this case, a cis guy. And AI exists to present them technological dog and pony shows with branding that can convince them that they no longer have to worry about gender because they can make all the masculine things that they want with an AI app. So they can hack themselves like a robot to be in their masculine spirit. The first political dimension of this political project is affective and psychological. It splits people from collectivity, which threatens capital. It disciplines labor by presenting labor organizing and other organizing as pointless, and convinces you that you can have individual autonomy over everything you want. And it's clear that you can't, right? It's clear that if you reject this notion, then there's no reason for you to use the AI. But the temptation of, oh, this is a useful tool, right? Because it can conveniently give me anything that I want it to give me, so why don't I ask it to give me things? That shit is what'll get you. Also in the case for art as well, why explore your personal human experience with care when you can just have the image right there? Exactly. The second point is hyper-extraction. AI serves as a huge funnel for profit in a time of profitability crisis. Look it up, profitability crisis, global systems crisis. A huge funnel for financial wheeling and dealing as global systems buckle and collapse. The US empire is collapsing. Global systems are collapsing. Fuel crisis, everything. Once it convinces you of its imminence and its power, it's here, there's nothing we can do about it, and it gives us all the things that we want So we're good. It can then convince you that any amount of money should be spent, any cost should be endured in order to advance it. Even if nobody has water or air anymore, it's worth it because we have a power-making machine that can answer all of your problems for you. In that, it coalesces with what Clara Mattei sees as the logical foundation of fascism: disciplining labor. It punishes black people, trans people, queer people, poor people of all sorts, indigenous people, et al. First, through gaslighting, and second, through destroying the environment one colony at a time. That is what AI is. It is a political project to do those two things. That's why people are pushing so much into it. That's why fascism is so powerful. That's what's fueling fascism. Not only is technology not neutral, and not only are the technologies we're dealing with fundamentally capitalist, colonial, and fascist tech, as opposed to, socialist technologies like ones that we would come up with if we own the means of production and could decide where we could invest into in our neighborhoods. We would create different technologies. But oppression itself is a technology. It's a constantly evolving field of figuring out how to destroy solidarity. Sadly, identity politics are dead, bro. Are you listening to anything I'm saying, bro? What do you think I'm not even going to get into this, bro. I don't have time. It is a constantly evolving field of figuring out how to destroy solidarity. But oppression itself is a technology. It's a constantly evolving field of figuring out how to destroy solidarity. Listen, I'm a Marxist. I love some class analysis. But listen, if you're not doing your class analysis with any level of fucking thinking about gender, you're not doing class analysis. Like, you guys are not reading enough. You're not reading enough and you're not organizing enough. I can tell. And I'm not saying that as like Mr. Authority figure, but I can tell, bro. I could tell because it's like you haven't talked to a trans person. You haven't had like a serious conversation with a trans person. You haven't done a serious thought process analysis of like what trans people are going through. Like, because if you would see this is fascism. The only way that you can combat fascism is by combating and resisting its temptations and its technologies. You have to say no to any rebrands, to any new ideas that are the same ideas, just repackaged, which is literally conversion therapy to exploratory therapy. With just a couple of tweaks, they made conversion therapy into something that sounds liberal and nice. That's technological advancement. That's what transgenocide is. It's not just people being physically assaulted. It's not just people being killed. That's happening. But what it's really banking on is that it's going to psychologically destroy as many of us as possible until we never think again of fighting against this system as it collapses in on us. And that's why you cannot give up.